Good morning, YouTube. And whoever else happens to be watching this. I was originally planning on making this video for Anita Scorsese, but her ego is so much bigger than mine that I don't think it would even get through. Now, there's a question that's running through my head for days on end now, and I thought I would finally throw that up on my website and see if anybody see what people had to say about it. Now, the reason why I was talking about Anita Scorsese just a moment ago is because she was the one who made me think about this. In her video of, what was it, Women in Media Part 2, I think it was, or Tropes vs. Women Part 2, at the very end, she was very, very close to asking a very important question. But due to her political affiliations, I have to assume, or perhaps, I don't know, but something got in the way of her objective thinking and cut her short of asking this. People of the internet, YouTube, anybody who comes across my channel, does gender matter? Okay, yes, of course it does. There is a certain amount of importance to the differences in the sexes. This is fairly clear. But does it have to be? Outside of the physiological differences between the genders, what sets them apart? Especially when it comes to things like literary arts. That's where I really think that this question carries some weight. What if, let's start with something simple, Jack and Jill was Jack and Joe? Would that have changed the fundamental elements of the story? Or if Romeo and Juliet were entitled instead Renee and Jill, would that have changed anything? Could you even take sex out of a story entirely and it still be able to hold water based solely off of the characters, independent of their physical characteristics? Ridley Scott thought so. In one of his earliest manuscripts, he tried to experiment with this. He had completely left gender-specific words out of the manuscript. He never said his or hers, never said Mr. or Mrs., never said he or she. He always referred to his character by their last name, actually, which he had intentionally made gender neutral. This allowed the reader to interpret sex for themselves if sex mattered. He believed that the story could be carried on the weight of the situation and the characters' responses to it. There was no romance. There was no women's issues, no men's issues. In fact, the villain of the story, let's just say antagonist actually, was an asexual creature in of itself that transmogrified its appearance in order to meet the physical needs of its partner. In case you haven't guessed yet, this was the original Alien movie. I think it was 1979 that he finished the manuscript. Might have been earlier, I'm sorry, I don't remember the date. And this was an amazing exercise, actually. Now, if I recall the story correctly, at some early point, I think Spielberg had read a copy of the first draft of it, and he wanted to take it and he wanted to change it into a romance story where, was it Ridley and Bishop ended up hooking up at the end of the story, and there's this great romantic sequence. Ridley Scott hated it. He completely shot it out of the water, saying, no, I don't want this. I want a world where there is complete balance, where it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, where all that matters are your thoughts and your ideas. Your actions speak for themselves. If the story need be told through a human perspective, then I will let the reader make it up for himself. I will not change the wording. Okay, so it won't sell in that format. But what a genius idea. Let's think about this for ourselves for a little bit. Now, we have gender roles in America. We all know the stereotypes. Men are strong, women are weak. Men are cold, women are caring. Do you think that this is nature or nurture, though? If we did not draw these lines in the sand for ourselves and repeat to one another time and time again that some things are meant for men and some things are meant for women, in several generations, would we remember? If there wasn't a market for gender-specific items, if we didn't advertise 2 women and 2 men using our primal needs as a foothold, is there another way? Could we have gone around this? And I can't say that there isn't a need for this, but maybe it's not as important as we think it is. Maybe we could train ourselves to ignore these little things. Or maybe it's a big thing. I'm in no position to say. I know that I don't live up to my expectations. I am not 6'2". I do not have a 6-pack chest, abs, whatever. I don't have a military crew cut, in case any of you forgot. I'm not a strong person. And I don't want to dominate people. It's just not in my nature. I don't drink beer. I don't watch hockey. I don't drive a fast car. Don't really have any desire for one. I, in fact, ride an 8-speed. You've all seen that. I'm a biker. I have some level of feminine interest in my life. I like bright colors when I'm not wearing black. Every once in a while, I feel the need for something just a little bit brighter. To be completely honest, though, my family shuns me for these things because I am not the man that they think I should be. I just am not. And I think it's because my primary caregiver for growing up was my grandmother. And my grandmother, I don't recall ever talking about sexism. She said, be polite, be respectful, and be open-minded. If you are those things, you will be forgiven for anything you do wrong. I think she was right. I think that a lot of these violent divisions between the sexes are because we reinforce them. We tell each other that things are the way they are, and that's the way they should be. Men are supposed to be abusive. Women are supposed to be docile. Women are supposed to be caregivers. Men are supposed to be fighters. There was a time in our history where this probably made good sense, actually. You know, when we were first building our nations, we could probably have boiled it down to it's okay for men to fight and die in battles against other tribes because it only takes one man to rebuild a nation. 500 women would be awful helpful, though. Make things go relatively fast. But again, I think I talked about this once before. Why do we still hold these same things in such high regard? Why do we not shun people for being violent, for being aggressive? Why do we celebrate wars and warriors? I can't say we shouldn't, but maybe we don't have to as much. Now, another part of human culture's evolution that I recall was that back during the Bronze Ages, there was this thing where we would gather around a gladiatorial arena and we would find the best people in our colonies to have them represent us in this competition of speed and strength, and then the winner would get a pile of gold, a dozen women, and their nation would, for X number of years, have the ability to grow at an exponential rate until they had to fight again in order to hold on to their funding. This was at the beginning of the Assyrian Empire, as I recall. So then we have this thing where we celebrate our warriors for a good reason. But this isn't the Bronze Age anymore. We don't need to hold on to these old ideas of the strength and the weakness of simply having a gender. Sex is something that should be hidden in your household, not aired on TV, although it does make good entertainment. Sex sells magazines, that's for damn sure. But do we need to perpetuate the same ideas? Can we live without girls are pink, boys are blue, girls play with dolls, boys play with knives? Do we have to tell our children that? Do we have to enforce upon them the idea that men and women are not equal? Another part of that argument was that in the literary field, women so often exist solely for the point of being a motivator for a man. The woman in the fridge gag, I guess. Take somebody, kill them, cut them up, throw them in the refrigerator, use it as a means of starting a story. Why is it a woman? Why can't it be a boy, a child? Why can't it be a man? Just for argument's sake, I don't have any women in my life right now. I do have a roommate, though, and I do love him dearly. And I could imagine that if something were going to send me into a homicidal rage, harm being done to him would probably be pretty close to the top of the list of things that would drive me goddamn insane. I don't think that love is this thing that can only exist between two people. It can exist between three. It doesn't have to be between a man and a woman. Shut up, you fucking right-wing commies. I'll get to you another time. Love can exist between any two people. Anytime you put two people in a room together, there is a chance that there is going to be love there. And love does not mean sex. I know in my last video I tore into romance pretty harshly. And I'm going to stand by that. But I still think friendship is real. Friendship is a great motivation. And friendship doesn't know a gender. It is a thing that exists between two minds and two spirits, if you believe in that.